Hello, Christ Church. I'm here to give a follow-up from my email last week on Saturday, kind of the last minute. We canceled our communion service on Sunday, and because we had our first few confirmed COVID cases in our community, and it happened Saturday night. We weren't totally sure about who had been exposed, and so we just thought we'd pause, give our session an opportunity to kind of regroup and process what our plans are as a church. And then, of course, this past week, Governor Inslee also made a statewide mandate that everyone, when out in public, needs to wear masks. And I'm not wearing a mask right now, but we were wearing a mask while we're here at work at the church. And so a couple of things that we've just really come to appreciate as leadership. These are things we've already known, but now that it's really close to us, first of all, we've seen how contagious COVID can be. I mean, surprisingly contagious in some ways. Also, it's kind of strange who doesn't get COVID. So it's kind of a mystery. We feel a lot of mystery around this virus, and but also that COVID is really going to be a part of our life and impacting us as a community really for a long time to come, probably a year, 2 years. It's going to be affecting how we meet with each other. And so our session met on Tuesday night, and so I wanted to give an update to you. Chris Van Hoffigan and Paul Fredette are both elders in our church who are, they're both surgeons, so they were giving some medical expertise. And also Renee Fredette, who is a family doctor in our church, gave us some input on her thoughts as well, as she's been doing research on the virus. And so we framed our discussion around these three questions. What is our response to the government, first? What is our plan for worship? And third, what is our plan for the elderly and the immunocompromised in our community? And so I thought I'd just talk about each of those three questions in this video. So first, what is our response as a church to the government and the mandate from Governor Inslee? And our session has said that we are committed to both obeying the government and worshiping the Lord as His gathered church. We will be continuing our communion services on Sunday morning, so I'm going to give some more instruction about that. But we will be honoring the instruction from Governor Inslee, at least for now, and will require that everyone who attends our worship services is wearing a mask. And I know that in our church there might be a mixture of reactions to that. Some of you might think that that's, of course, a no-brainer, that we should be wearing masks and we should be following the instructions from the governor. But others might say that, you're not convinced that masks are really effective and help stop the virus, and or maybe you're uncomfortable with the level of control that the government is exercising in that mandate. Well, with regards to the effectiveness of masks, even our elders, there's probably a diversity of views of whether they think that masks are effective or not. But at this point, our elders are all agreed that we are obligated by the Lord to honor this mandate from our government in our worship services and in our community, in our gatherings. And it's important for us as Christians to appreciate the virtue of obeying authorities. This is from 1 Peter 2. Peter says, "Be subject to for the Lord's sake, to every human institution, whether it be to the emperor as supreme or to governors as sent by him to punish those who do evil and to praise those who do good. For this is the will of God, that by doing good you should put to silence the ignorance of foolish people. Live as people who are free, not using your freedom as a cover-up for evil, but living as servants of God. Honor everyone, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the emperor." And amazingly, the emperor here is likely Nero, who's the horrific persecutor of Christians. It's truly wicked man. And Peter says, honor and obey him. This is the will of God. And if you're all concerned about the government making restrictions on our worship, whether that's an impingement on our First Amendment rights, Mike Hollister pointed out that historically the government is allowed to make some restrictions on First Amendment rights. So for example, you're not allowed to yell fire in a movie theater. And so you might think that's an impingement on our freedom of speech. So the government can restrict the time, place, and manner in which we exercise our First Amendment rights in situations like a pandemic, as long as they're not targeting churches with these restrictions or restricting the content of what is happening in the worship services. So at this point, we have no biblical grounds for rejecting this mandate from the government. So we'll be submitting to it. So first, what's our response to the government? We're committed to obeying the government and to continue worshiping the Lord as his gathered church. So second then, what is our plan for worship? For now, our worship services will continue to be recorded online, and every Sunday we'll have short communion services at the church. These will be outside in the parking lot. And as I mentioned, we will require everyone to wear a mask and to stand at least 6 feet apart. So as you drive in, we will probably review some of these instructions about our time together. If someone comes to our service and refuses to wear a mask, they will need to stay in their car. This service will be transmitted over an FM transmitter. Also, anyone who remains in their car can bring their own elements of bread and wine so that they can take communion. And speaking of communion, I know that many people thought that the little packages of communion were probably the worst tasting communion they've ever had in their life. And so we're also encouraging everyone to bring your own elements. It's probably better to not have to pass out elements. You can bring your own bread and wine. We will have those packets here if anyone forgets or isn't able to bring them, but that'll motivate you to bring your own elements so you don't have to eat the little wafer and drink the Kool-Aid tasting stuff that's in the little packets. So we also ask that after the service that you would be vigilant about social distancing, continuing to wear your mask. This means no hugging, talking from a distance, and I understand that this is a hardship. But also, if you're greeting one another while the next service is taking place or starting, make sure to go over to the corner of the parking lot and respect the time that the next group of people is giving to worship the Lord. So that's our plan for worship. We hope that you'll be with us this coming Sunday. So our third question then is, what is our plan for the elderly and immunocompromised in our community, as we're really appreciating how easily this virus can spread. We have decided to have our first service be devoted to those who are more vulnerable. And so we're going to be changing the time of our services. There's a little more time in between them. The first service will be at 10:30 for those who are elderly or immunocompromised, or even if you're kind of anxious about the virus, you could come to the 10:30 service. And then at 11:15, individuals or families with the last name starting with letters A to M, you come at 11:15, and then at noon, last names starting with N to Z. And one other point that we discussed as a session is what are we going to do about reporting as people get COVID in our community? That's going to be happening more over the months ahead, over the year ahead, and I'm sure lots of people will eventually get COVID. And so we have decided to not be policing our church. We're going to leave it up to individuals to make known to others that they have COVID. And what we strongly want to encourage the church is to see no stigma attached to getting sick. There's nothing wrong with getting sick. It's not a sin if you get sick. We are a family, and so as much as in a family you make things known that are happening to you, we hope that people would be comfortable sharing. We could pray for one another. You can make known to the church, hey, I'm sick, I'd love your prayers, and it's a way to let people know. Certainly, if you have symptoms or if you have tested positive, we would expect that you would make that known to people, or anyone that you might have exposed. Please let them know, but we are going to leave that up to you to be responsible. So we won't be announcing to the church if we find out that someone has COVID. So that's an update for things right now. Please contact me or contact the elders if you have any questions. And we're looking forward to seeing you all on Sunday for worship, to continue to gather. It's so important that we gather and to receive the grace of Christ as we walk through this. What a difficult year. Just a 2020 has really been brutal, and so we need Christ. We need one another. And don't forget to bring your own bread and wine. And so I miss you all. God bless.